Hi, I'm Kara.
And I'm Danny.
And this is Art with a Lisp. I am a certified life coach and owner of Press Play Coaching.
And I have a Lisp.
The purpose of this podcast is to celebrate artists, talk about their work, their struggles, and their taboo relationship with money. If you're a creative person who believes you can never make money off your craft, we hope it inspires you to hear the stories of the ones who are doing it.
Do it. Hi, welcome to Art with a Lisp, where we just randomly started and everybody wasn't prepared but me. I'm your host, Danny, and this is your co-host, Kara, and we have a guest, Steven. And Kara, you guys known each other for some time, right?
Yeah, how long have we known each other? It's been at least...
It's been a while.
2010, I feel like. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, minimum 10 years.
Yeah.
At least.
And back then, it was actually for music. Before we did anything with sign language, before I did anything with sign language, we got together and jammed a little bit.
We went to like Central Park, and I felt like such a cool hipster. That was like my one and only time jamming out with some other musicians and doing some fun stuff, and I enjoyed it.
And and I knew your brother.
Right.
But how did we actually start hanging out?
Oh man, I remember a time before Kara, and then there was a time with Kara in my life.
Yeah, BC, AC.
Exactly.
So we did the music. That was fun. Yeah. And then later we reconnected in the sign language community.
Yeah.
And so we kind of want to start linear. We want to talk about, you do a lot of things. You're a woodworker. Mm-hmm. You're a musician. What are some of the other creative elements that you like?
I mean, to be honest, I just do things that stimulate my brain. So whether that's, writing, whether it's music or woodworking, I just enjoy learning skills, and I enjoy putting those skills to use in a creative way.
Mm-hmm. You said something really funny on the quick chat, if you could find it in a medieval village, I'll make it.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've always been drawn to, is just skills that involve a lot of hand-eye coordination that end with something that you've made. So, and I enjoy the functional aspect of things. So blacksmithing, woodworking, all of those things. I like the artistry behind it, but I also like the fact that you've created a functional object that has a purpose.
Is there any anti-technology, anti-future stuff going on, or is it just the aesthetic that you like? What is it about the...
I mean, I think that might just be my personality. I'm kind of an introvert myself, so I prefer doing things quietly and with fewer people. So that scene, always kind of drew me. I like being in the woods. I like doing that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I like backpacking and bushcraft and all that, but with all that comes a lot
what's bushcraft? Just fill me in, because I have no idea.
Oh yeah, sure. It was actually, I think it's the things that President Bush does as a hobby.
Really?
No.
Oh.
I mean, listen, he very well could call it that. I don't know.
He probably does call it that.
No, so you like going to war?
Yeah, sure. No, but bushcraft is really, it's just outdoor survival skills kind of thing. So things that people do when they're camping and setting up camp, making little tools, using, as little things as possible to make as much as possible with what you have.
Survivalist?
Almost kind of like on that,
on the border. Okay.
Yeah, they use, there's a lot of overlap in there. But again, for me, it just comes down to learning skills, using tools, and solving problems. So that kind of presents all three of those things.
Living off the land kind of thing too? Is that part of it?
I know that's a really romantic idea, and everybody says that they want to do it, and sure, I'd love to, but for me, it's more just about learning the skills. I like to learn, and I like to try new things, and I like to take what I've learned and put it to use.
Can you take us back to your childhood when you discovered your creative self? In your questionnaire, you wrote that your parents worked a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So how has that affected your viewpoint on adult life and work, and how did you grow up and they influence you creatively?
Okay, there's 3 questions.
So
break it down for me. What were you as a creative child? What were you into creatively?
Curious. I think that's one of the biggest things that I still am, is I always wanted to know how something worked. Sometimes to the detriment of my parents, who would buy me this new toy, and 2 days later I had it in pieces because I wanted to know how it worked. I didn't always put it back together, but at least I learned something in the process. So I've always been a really curious person. I've always enjoyed learning. I like to understand how the world around me works. And that just kind of naturally branched into more creative aspects. So, I would see somebody that would be painting something, and I would want to understand why they're using those colors. Why are they using, this perspective and all those things? I would listen to music and I would think, I like this, but why do I like it? What about this do I like? And I couldn't always emulate it, but in the process, you learn a lot about the creative process itself. So yeah, I guess just as a kid, I was just curious. So whatever I had around me, whatever was outside, I just wanted to know more about it.
Why did you like what you liked back then? Did you find the answers?
No. I mean, I never thought about it to get an answer as far as like why I liked it. I just knew that I liked it, and I wanted to understand why it was appealing to me.
Okay.
Because if I understood it, then I could do it too.
Okay.
I think that's such a little boy thing, because I would do the same thing with toys.
Yeah.
I'll get them and just break them open.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
He's like, you were like, I actually would like to understand. He's just like, I break now.
I taught my sister how to ride a bike.
Okay.
Because I saw a mechanic work on the bike, and I wanted to do that. So they put training wheels on her, and I was like, how do you take them off? And I took them off, but I couldn't put them back in. So she wanted to ride her bike.
And we never saw your little sister.
I gotta love older brothers. My older brother took my big wheel, rode it down the block, comes back, and then 2 hours later he's like, "Oh, your big wheel's gone." I'm like, cool.
As he's counting dollar bills.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what happened to it.
So what your second question was about?
I forgot.
Something about you had mentioned in your interview, like, how did your
your parents
view
worked.
of money?
Right.
Yeah, how did your view of money? How was it shaped starting in childhood?
Yeah. So my parents are both from Colombia. So they both emigrated here. I know I look super Spanish.
You
don't
do.
I?
You
Yeah,
look
yeah.
super
totally,
white.
Totally. For
Do
those
you
of you
speak
listening,
Spanish?
I am incredibly Spanish.
Do you speak Spanish?
I do.
He's
yeah.
very
Okay.
fair skinned, like talking Twilight type
Massive perm. Yeah.
He's like blue eyed and super white skin.
So yeah, having grown up with an immigrant family, you see a lot of the struggles that they go to, and obviously growing up in an American culture, I identify as an American person, so I understand the things that other families had and that they wanted and their goals, and then I compare that to my family, and I kind of saw the difference. My parents worked incredibly hard, but the result of their work never really equalized. Like, I always felt like they put way more effort into getting a job and just working anything they could to feed their family, but what they got out of it, I just felt like it was not fair. Like, it wasn't enough. And granted, they provided for us. I never felt like I was lacking anything necessary, but that always kind of stuck in my mind. And even as a young kid, I remember being in my room and I was like, retired people, really, they're living the dream. Like, how can I do the things I want to do without doing the things I don't want to do? And then I would look at my parents and be like, they're working, 40 plus hours a week just to get us the bare minimum. And that's like, 2/3 of their waking hours of their life are devoted to something that I know they don't enjoy. But granted, they're doing it because they have a family to provide for. But it just, that always stuck with me. And I never liked the aspect, really, of working. I know that sounds kind of dumb, but I just work, air quotes, never made sense to me.
It sounds like you mean by work, you mean like doing something you don't want to do.
Yeah. So doing something for a prolonged period of time that you don't want to do solely for money.
Yeah.
Never really clicked with me. And I understood it, and I understand why a lot of people do it, and I do it myself. My wife does it all the time.
Yeah.
So I understand it. It just never resonated with me.
Were your parents creative?
Yeah, I'd say my dad more so than my mom. My dad used to paint and draw a lot. My brother and I both grew up playing guitar and doing a lot of things. And my dad liked being outdoors, and he kind of helped us to appreciate a lot of that stuff. So I definitely see a lot of my curiosity come from him.
But you also had a living example of somebody who was an artist, who was doing a non-creative job,
absolutely.
and like how it kind of how they struggled with it.
And for a while too, he was a professional photographer, and he enjoyed it. But it just, the lifestyle and the schedule just wasn't conducive to raising a family. So again, I had to see him give up something that he did find a nice balance between something he enjoyed to do and something that paid, but he had to give it up for other reasons. So again, all those things kind of like supported the fact that I was like, I don't know that I want to be stuck doing something that I don't enjoy.
Coming from an immigrant family, I know there's a lot of pressure, right? And you have to make their sacrifice worthwhile. Did you ever feel that as an adult, that you had to go to school or you had to take on a certain career path because of the sacrifices your parents?
I did feel that way, not because I felt that I needed to own up to what my parents had done. It was more because I felt like it's what I needed to do to be a respectable, responsible member of society. You know, I felt that like I had to have a full-time job before I got married, because otherwise what am I offering to this marriage? And I did those things. And for the first 4 years of my marriage, I was at an office job doing something that was vaguely interesting that I kind of enjoyed, but still an office job. And after 4 years, I was like, this is killing me. And my wife noticed it too. And that's really when we started talking about other opportunities and things that I enjoy doing, and what of those things could you make money doing?
What was the biggest fear going from office to, because I know Kara just did that transition, right? You also had a 9 to 5, and now you're
still have a 9 to 5.
Oh.
I just do all the things now.
Yeah, you just do more. But what was that fear of letting go of your secured 9 to 5 to venturing off?
Well, I mean, it's like, jumping off a cliff with a parachute that you haven't tested. But at the same time, this.
That doesn't sound fun.
No, not really. I mean, if you like base jumping, sure, but still, I like to land. I'd like to land in one piece. But I think really the biggest thing is the kind of the burden you feel, and this was something that I kind of did feel like I inherited from my parents, was that why am I letting go of something that is quote unquote secure? I have a job that pays me, that I know I can go to every single day, and the only reason that I don't want to do this is because I don't want to do it. And is that really fair? Is that a responsible thing to do as a newlywed person? I have to help to support a family. I have other responsibilities. Is this just selfish? Should I just suck it up and not be a baby, so to speak? So that was really my biggest concern. It wasn't so much a fear. It was just more of responsibility. Like the weight you feel of being what everybody considers to be a responsible person.
So how'd you work through that?
I talked with my wife a lot. I told her how I felt. I told her what I thought. I told her, that I didn't want her to think that I was doing this just for me, that I didn't want her to think that I was being selfish. And to her credit, she patiently listened. She supported me the entire way. And the both of us together kind of came up with a plan. And we came up with what I could do. And knowing that she was there to support me was a huge weight off my shoulders, because I wasn't going to do it alone. And I wasn't going to do it with someone that I care about begrudging me for it. Well, you know what, forget it. I have to do this because I'm passionate about it. I don't care what anybody else says.
Right.
No, she was like, listen, I see that this current job, you're suffering. And I see that this is what you want to do. And I know that you're a skilled and intelligent person. And if this is what you want, she's like, I support you, and we'll work together at it. And we have been ever since. I
love that. Your wife kind of does an interesting job herself, right? What does she do?
So she is a research chemist. She's done a lot of things, among which probably my favorite was that she worked on making gummy vitamins.
Oh, I love that.
So my favorite part was that I got to taste test almost all of them, including the prenatals, which she didn't tell me about until after I ate. But side note,
were primed for
my
birth.
hair and skin and nails were on fire for that. But no, she is a chemist by trade, and she is very diligent, and she's very driven, in her personality. She's a creative person as well, but I feel like she is the kind of person that gets joy from accomplishing things that can be done in like a 9 to 5 setting, like a traditional job, and she's good with that.
But she's also like a brilliant gardener, right? And like,
oh yeah, that's her passion.
That's
sure.
Like, so she has that like beautiful right brain, left brain thing. I'm always intrigued by people who have that like strong like creativity. But then there's like an artisan craftsmanship to it, and then having this left brain thing, being able to kind of dig into data, and I don't know what chemists do, but
just mix things in beakers and
beakers,
big goggles on, the usual.
Graduated cylinder.
They got the Muppets.
Yeah.
That's actually her boss.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's great. So she has that understanding. You also have kind of like that right brain, left brain thing, and she supported you in doing this. So what did you do after you left your 9 to 5?
So that was kind of a tricky transition. Thankfully, the timing worked out. I ended up doing construction part-time through like a friend of a friend needed some help. And I still do that, honestly. I actually, every now and then, even on my own, I'll do some side jobs to keep, money coming in. But while I was doing that, that freed up a lot of my time. And I didn't really start making things to sell for a while. What I would do is I would find projects and I would see if anybody wanted that specific project. And then I would just have them pay for the materials. And that was basically my way of self-educating myself. And I did take a few courses here and there as I could afford it.
I wish I knew you when way back.
When you were doing for free.
Yeah, I know, right? You missed the boat, man.
So good.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of trust in them, like for them to have in you. Like, okay, I'm just going to bet on you and pay for these materials and hope that you make something beautiful. And why did they have that?
I mean, a lot of them were friends and family, so there's already a trust in a relationship that we have there. But, I expressed to them what I was doing, and it was an open conversation. It was like, listen, this is what I want to do. I'm really passionate about it. I want to give you an opportunity to give me an opportunity.
Help me.
Exactly. Let's scratch our backs together. So, it didn't always pan out. But when it did...
Wait, tell me about that.
Not that anything catastrophic ever happened. It was more just really like, bad? Hey, I can make you this thing, and they were like, no. Okay. So I was like, all right, well.
That's very interesting because I think a lot of people when they start off, they have to do things for free just to get their name out there, like photographers, videographers, and then when is a good point that you find yourself like, I'm good enough not to do this for free? How did that transition?
That's a tough one.
You said it took a while, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I think I was the biggest hurdle for that one because the feeling of like not being sincere because you weren't trained officially, or you did. I never went through an apprenticeship. I don't have a certificate that says that I'm a master woodworker. So you don't want to come off as a fraud, but at the same time you're like, well, I have been putting in a lot of time and a lot of effort. So at what point do I start charging?
Right.
And you just have to make that leap at some point, and more than likely you're going to undercharge because that's what I did. I was like, well, my time is useless because I don't know what I'm doing. So just pay me whatever you want and I'll take it. And you do that 3 or 4 times and you realize, wow, this is terrible. And then you slowly start charging a little bit more and a little bit more. I think my biggest detriment was that I didn't reach out to more woodworkers sooner because I was kind of working in a vacuum. I was like, well, I see what I like and I know what I know and I know, kind of what I want to make. But I have no idea what anybody else is charging for this kind of stuff.
Oh, the introvert's dilemma.
Oh, it's the worst. It's
this thing of like, there's so many beautiful things about being introvert, and I talk about this too, like with my coaching and on my coaching page. It's just like there's great things about it. Like you can really fix it. You can really have a lot of attention and do something. But then there's a little bit of that detachment from sense of community and all of the benefits that come from brainstorming and working with others. And like it sounds like they could have helped you avoid some of the pitfalls that you had to. That you went through. So how long was it from when you first started like dabbling with woodwork and like, giving it away for free before you actually charged for your first piece?
Probably maybe about a year-ish. Because I started in 2015 officially with the business. And so yeah, probably around 2016, maybe 2017 is when I started actually selling some of the things that I would make. And it was a big back and forth, which I still am struggling with today, was the debate between do I go strictly with custom commissions and wait for people to tell me what they want to make, or do I try and develop my own products and my own art, so to speak, and try and market that?
Yeah.
And the needle sways constantly because it's a really difficult line to walk.
That's actually, I never thought about that. So what did you think of as a possible product that you could make?
So I started with a lot of different things. I tried doing coffee tables. I've done end grain butcher blocks. I did skateboards for a while. I've done bows. So what I'm trying to find is like kind of a niche product that I enjoy making, but that people will also pay the right amount for.
Okay.
And in between all those things, I've also constantly been taking on commissions, which gives me an opportunity to do something that I wouldn't normally do. But what I find more often than not is that people are asking me to do things that I don't want to make or that I feel are kind of just from a completely artistic standpoint, like they like cheapen what I do.
Like, what do you mean?
People might say, okay, well, I saw this at Pier 1, you know, can you make that?
Oh.
I mean, like, sure, I can make an interpretation of that. And they're like, no, but I want that. I'm like, then you should buy that. But like, I don't want to pay that. So what you're saying is you want me to recreate that.
You would definitely charge more than
but
that,
less.
right?
And I think there's a huge gap in the education of consumers because they don't realize that custom work is not to copy things that you see cheaper. It's because you want something specific made. And that's not going to come at a cheap price. Certainly not the price that mass-produced products can be.
Yeah, it's like way more special and like can be curated or like
and getting people to understand that is really difficult. And I'm guilty of just saying yes plenty of times, just being like, you know what, it's a job, I'll take it, whatever. But the more I do it, the more I want to develop my own product so that people can say, oh, well, this is what you make. Okay, then I'll take that. And it's whatever price I charge because I know the product, I know the process, and I know what goes into it.
You talk about having a niche in craft. Is there also a certain look that you want it to be your own look when you create something?
Like a signature style?
Yeah, like a signature style.
Yes, and that's a tough one. I mean, and I can't speak for other forms of art, but I know for furniture, there's a lot of different styles. You know, you guys are sitting here with a live edge table. That's a very specific style. There's, you know, arts and crafts, there's postmodern, there's Danish modern, there's all sorts of styles, and I could try and emulate them. And what I have found is that the more styles you mimic, the more you find what you like about some and what you like about others. So yes, to answer your question, I would like to have a style that is just mine, but I feel like that's a very long process that is going to take a long time because I have to go through making as many things as possible to slowly kind of discover what my style is. And because if I look at things I made in 2015, they're completely different than the things I make now.
How are they different? What has happened?
The materials have gotten better. The construction quality has gotten better. And just the overall design of the pieces, I feel like I have been able to slowly shape into just what I feel looks good.
What's your style like now?
That's hard to say because the style varies also depending on what I make. Because if someone asks me to make a live edge table, there's only so many parameters that can describe a live edge table. It has to be a slab of wood. It has to have a live edge. Right. So I can't make something that looks... Not a lot of room
for interpretation.
Yeah, exactly. So there is room within that I can kind of craft. And I pull inspiration from a lot of other makers and a lot of other woodworkers that I try and kind of hide in the details a little bit. So I feel like making something novel is really just taking other things that you've seen and using them in a novel way. Right.
Did you ever make one of those live like tables that have like the resin in the middle?
The river tables?
That's what I wanted.
Yeah. I feel like you make that.
Real quick. So when I was renovating my house, I actually reached out to him to do that. But
it's really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, but really expensive because of COVID.
Yeah.
Well, and also because of Steven Escamilla.
Yeah, because of everything he was saying. Yeah. It was like it's custom work.
I'm the sausage king of Chicago.
So how many of those have you made?
So of the river tables you're talking about? I haven't made any of those specifically, and I'm sure I'm going to be upsetting some people, but I do have my feelings about those.
You don't like them?
So the original river table, that as far as I know...
Are we going to purist territory here?
I guess so. Okay. It's happening.
I don't care. I have no attachment.
The first time that I encountered one was by a guy named Greg Klassen, who is still on social media. And his tables were crafted with a blue piece of glass that he would cut a shape into and set in place. And they were gorgeous tables. And I thought it was mind-blowing when I first saw them. They're absolutely amazing. A few years later, epoxy became a really popular substance as a material to build with, and people just started throwing epoxy at everything. And don't get me wrong, I respect what they do. It still takes skill to do it, and I've seen some really, really cool stuff with epoxy. But in my own personal take, I feel like the epoxy river table is just a little bit of like a cop-out.
It's less craftsmanship because you don't have to be so precise with the cutting.
Again, I've seen some really beautiful ones. I have nothing against them. But personally, I struggle to to be like, I'm going to make that. Because if I want to make it, it would be something that would be similar to the original one that I saw that really touched me as an artist.
I remember you also were talking about years ago, you mentioned that you wanted to get more into that Japanese style where it kind of like locks in naturally without needing nails. You could sound very technical, right? What is that called?
I mean, well, just the Japanese style joinery.
Yeah.
And a lot of traditional woodworking is like that, where it's a lot of wood to wood joinery, so you don't use as many fasteners. But that was years ago, you know. So even since then, I still incorporate a lot of that into my work. But I also take cues from, you know, early American work and European work and a lot of other things. And again, I'm constantly reworking what I like and what I don't like to pare away all of like the things that aren't my style.
Is it okay if I make an observation?
Please do.
I'm curious about something.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing when you talked about, this is a kind of something I would do in coaching too. Is like, you mentioned when you were a child, you like to take things apart and you wanted to see how they work and then see why you like them. And then when I said, why do you like them? You're like, oh, I didn't know. I never really, like, it sounds like the process of it was more fun and satisfying to you than actually nailing down, like, I like this, I don't like that. And then when I'm asking you now, or Danny asks, like, what is your style now? And you're kind of like, I don't know. I'm still exploring that. Tell me more about that. What is that about?
You know, I haven't thought about that until this moment, but I feel like the fact that I like it is less important to me than why it drew my attention.
Okay.
Because me liking it is sort of like the compass needle telling me where to go.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, oh, I like that. Oh, cool. Why do I like that?
Right.
I already know that I like it, and I guess internally I don't need to figure out why I like it. I need to figure out why it was attractive, like why it was attractive to me. And in that process, I may learn, oh, well, I liked XYZ about it, but I didn't like this about it.
Okay.
And then the next time I do it, I already know this going into it, and I feel like the more knowledge I have going into a project, the better I can be at it, and the more efficiently I can create it.
How much
will you ever find your own style, or is that not important to you?
That's a great question. I feel like I will find it, and it may be multiple styles. And like, I feel like I may have already found it, and then I moved on past it because there was something else that I like. But regardless, the style that I'm currently crafting in whatever time period, whether it's 10, 15 years from now, will be my style because it's the culmination of everything else that I've done.
Right.
So as I do more things, that style will automatically be shifting.
Do you feel like you're building towards a style, or you're just pivoting all the time?
That's a good question too.
I'm trying to understand.
No, please, like help me to analyze myself.
It's not a good or bad thing. I'm just genuinely, because it sounds like you really enjoy the how of things.
Yeah. So I've had a similar conversation with my wife, and she, I don't think she coined the term. I think we've heard it before, but she says that I chase the dopamine. I am constantly driven by things that stimulate me. And I'm constantly on the lookout for them. So if there's a project that I am interested in, I will dive headfirst into it. I won't come out until I've gotten what I need to get out of it from it.
Yeah.
But if you ask me to like unload the dishwasher, she's literally caught me standing still with a plate in my hand, just staring into the ether for like 5 minutes straight because my brain is just somewhere else because this is not something that interests me.
Right.
Not a great habit to have.
Right. No, relatable though.
But I think that's
just being a man.
I mean,
I'm
that's
the
a
same
whole
way,
different
so
podcast. But I think
that's,
that's my driving motivation is things that interest me. And, you know, within the woodworking world, I'm constantly trying to find something that interests me. And the reason can vary completely. It may not always have to be with woodworking. It may be, you know, the reason behind the woodwork or the way that they make it, the material they use, the aesthetic appeal of the piece. All these things can be factors that I'm just like, you know what? that's really interesting. I need to figure that out. It's like a Rubik's Cube that I'm constantly like twisting and trying to solve.
Yeah.
When do you have enough? Like you do a project, you do a certain style, and you're like, okay, I'm satisfied with this. And I need something else. Like, when do you realize that within yourself?
When the magic goes away.
Well, okay, so when
you get bored?
Well, not even when I get bored. I think when I see something that interests me, it interests me because I don't understand it.
Okay.
Like I see them do something and I'm like, whoa, that's insane. And then I learn about it, I practice it, I do it, until I completely understand it. And then the next time I see it, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what he's doing. And now I'm just analyzing it.
Right.
But it's no longer magical. Like I'm not wowed by it. I'm still intrigued, and I now respect it because I understand what goes into it.
Yeah.
And I can probably use what I learned on my next project.
Yes.
But as soon as I understand it and have like a decent grasp of it, now I'm like, okay, cool. What's that?
How does this, okay, this is a totally personal question.
Yeah.
Feel free to be like, Kara, shut up. How does that translate into your marriage? Like, is there this thing of like, I understand what this is about now. I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, your wife is fascinating and intelligent and brilliant.
His wife is in the other room.
But like that process, that process of like, I need to understand how it works.
Yeah.
I'm so curious. And then, okay, I have the information. Now I move on. How does that?
So, I mean, you could say that people are really a project in themselves. And the more that you learn about a person, the more there is to learn about them. So
nice answer.
Not everybody would agree with that, but I agree with that.
Right.
I think some
And
people are like, no, we maxed out here.
Yeah. And, you know, and the fact that I'm an introvert too, I don't necessarily reach out to associate with a lot of people because I don't have that desire within me.
Yeah.
But when I met my wife, she was unique, and I was instantly attracted to her personality and who she was. So the more time we spend together, the more I'm learning.
Aww.
And you know, I assume she's making the same assumption of me. Maybe she's already got me figured out.
You, I'll just
yeah,
tell you
she
that.
figured me out in year 1, and she was like, he can stay.
Cool. Wow. Okay. So another thing I'm thinking, also none of my business, but we're on a podcast, right? So why not ask?
Why not?
Is like, so this, I'm hearing like you kind of like pivoting, you're exploring these different styles. Like, is that pursuit of a creativity, or is there an avoidance? Like, are you avoiding something by not staying in something too long?
There is definitely avoidance. Because I'm drawn to things that stimulate me, I'm repelled by things that don't.
Okay.
So as I'm going towards something, sometimes it's because I'm genuinely interested in the thing, and other times it's because there's something else bigger that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I learned how badly by the way, I learned how to play the harmonica because I was just bored. Like I there was other things that I knew I had to do, and I was just like, but harmonica, you know, and it's just like.
Oh wait, hold on. We're gonna have to cut this.
That is no, it's meow meow.
Cat feeder.
Yes, I think we should link this in the podcast.
I kind of think
and then just put
That's
like
gonna be
a
my
hole in
next
the
instrument
wall.
is the meow meow.
The meow meow.
the meow meow.
Hole in the wall starts now. In this week's episode of Hole in the Wall, we have Chofi's BIRRIA Tacos, the original home for BIRRIA Tacos. I like this place because they have fresh, never frozen ingredients. They also have an assortment of authentic Mexican tacos, such as carne norteña. They have a chicken taco and a vegetarian option. They also have a mole, which is a type of Mexican sandwich that is delicious. They have their homemade guacamole that they serve with their chips. I also like their nacho special. Juicy. Look at those tacos. Anyway, if you're in the mood for some tacos, go to Chofi's in 1706 Summit Avenue, Union City.
So you were talking about learning harmonica.
Yeah. So I had learned the harmonica really just as like a little escape from doing chores or doing whatever it was that I needed to do. I was just like, you know what, this is more interesting. So I did that, and I didn't do great at it, but it just distracted me at the time.
Got it. I wonder, I know you have a good question. I just want to,
Yeah, I do.
because it's what I'm asking is related to this.
And what I'm asking is
So-
not.
Right. That's per usual.
Par for the course.
But good. Okay. Now, just because you're my friend, I feel like they have a little bit more luxury here to theorize. I'm going to throw out a theory, and you just tell me if it's way off or not. I wonder if you actually settling down on a style and saying, you know what, I'm really good at this. Let me really lean into this. And yeah, it may be a little more monotonous because you're going to, but you'll find creative ways within that style. Then I feel like is where the money would really come in. Because now you are setting yourself apart and people are, it's very distinguished. You're not just a chameleon in the wood world. And then people will be coming to you and flocking to you for these specialty pieces. But then you would have to confront your feelings about money and what you said about your parents and the pursuit of money and people. And I just wonder if maybe that could be something that you're avoiding.
So I've had a very similar thought from the beginning of doing this process. I felt like I had two options. Either I allow myself to make anything and everything, keep all my doors open and just learn as much as I can and take everything in. Or like you said, I focus on a niche product, because there is money to be made in a niche product. And that's really where you can set yourself apart. It's where you can hone your skills, and it's where people know what you do.
Right.
My issue was that I didn't know anything. So I wanted to know as much as I could, to learn as much as I could. And about every 2-ish years, I have this argument with myself, and I'm like, no, I'm settling down. This is the thing I'm making. This is it. I'm just going to focus my energy on this. And either the market isn't there, or I just don't enjoy making the product. So at first it was coffee tables, and I did a lot of coffee tables, and I still enjoy them. But I feel like people don't appreciate them for what they are, because they just see them as kind of like a throwaway piece. So no one's going to pay $2,500 for a custom coffee table. Some might, but the majority of the people that at least that I have run into so far, and that could be the issue,
sure,
are not willing to do that. And then I've tried to do multiple other things, and I'm actually on the cusp of getting to that point right now. And I think what I'm settling on is custom chairs, because it's a really nice convergence of skill, and the types of skills that I prefer to use within the woodworking world. It's incredibly artistic, and I think that when people get custom chairs, they're willing to pay a little bit more. It's sort of like an intrinsic understanding that this is a higher end piece. Whereas if I say something like a coffee table or a cabinet or things like that, some people might think it's very high end, and some might think IKEA. Nothing against IKEA,
right.
It's its own thing.
Right.
But it's funny you mentioned this whole subject, because I am literally like on the cusp. Like I'm looking at classes to take for chair making and for a lot of things, because I think I've done this long enough where I'm finding the need to dive deeper into a specific thing, because I get very frustrated that people don't actually know what I do. People have asked me to, like, can you install a door? Can you put up kitchen cabinets? Oh, I have a tiled floor. That's kind of like carpentry. Are you a carpenter? I need my bed looked at, so it's like all these like nebulous things.
Yeah.
And I hate having to tell them no, but I also
live in the nebula.
Yeah, I do. And I hate having to sound condescending and be like, well, I'm actually an artisan, yeah. But I shouldn't have to tell people that. My work should. And up until this point, my work has just been scattered. It's just been whatever comes near me, whatever I'm interested in. And I think I've been on that journey long enough where I can now knowingly say, okay, you know what? I've learned what I've learned. These are the things I like. This seems to hit a lot of those check marks. I think it's time, and I'm ready to kind of go all in on one thing and make that work.
And how do you feel when you think about doing that?
A lot like I did when I first started the business. Like the floor could fall out from under me at any point, because the benefit of doing anything and everything is that all doors are open to you. You may not be great at any of them, but they're all open.
Does it ever cross-pollinate?
In what way?
In like a certain style, you talked about the Japanese style, you talked about the coffee table. Do you put any of the skills that you learn into making a chair? Or you talked about, I think, metal. Do you ever put any of what you learned somewhere else, any style or skill, into what you're currently working on?
100%. I think that really is what I do. I take in as much knowledge and skill. I let it marinate in my head for a long time, and when it's ready, something comes out that is an amalgam of all those things. So on whatever piece I'm working on, all of my years of knowledge and skill and practice and failure come into that piece. So my next piece, even if it's the exact same thing, will be better and will be different, because I'm cross-pollinating all those skills, as you said.
So you're developing your own specific style in unique ways.
In a way. Aesthetically, that can be hard to do, because there are a lot of defined styles, but from production methods, from efficiency standpoints, all of those things I'm constantly refining, and my tools, my methods, my abilities, that I am refining that is my own way of doing things. The end result may be, because you're selling something, you're catering to a market. So the end result will at some way be dictated by what the market wants, with my own touches on it, or with my own flair, or little bits of my style. But it is kind of, for me at least, hard to just have a completely different and novel style in a world where there's so much set in stone.
Yeah, that's interesting. You have a signature style of learning and of doing, but the signature style is of the actual final product is what is like,
because at the end of the day, a chair still has to be a chair. It has to be 18 inches off of the ground, because that's the length of the human, leg, the first half of your leg. It has to have arms. It has to have a back. Yeah. So all of these things are constraints within which I can be creative. But, the style itself is a little bit limited. It's not purely abstract art, which I really respect. But I think because I'm doing something that is very utilitarian, I do have to kind of restrain it.
Yeah, because you've made some interesting pieces. You mentioned making a video game controller.
Yeah, yes. I mean, people have asked me to do all kinds of interesting things, and it's been a great journey, and I love it. But you literally never know what you're gonna get. I had somebody, so cool. They sent me a picture of an old Sega Genesis controller, and I just made a little wooden version of it, and it's just a little showpiece. But stuff so like cool. That just kind of helps you to develop, what you like and what you don't like.
And how much do you charge for a piece like that, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. That's really hard for me to say. And that
you didn't give it away for free.
No, I didn't give it away for free. I probably undercharged, because when it's something totally new, I have no idea. I have no idea how long this is going to take me. I have no idea what materials I'm going to use, if I'm going to mess it up 8 times. And then I feel bad, because I'm like, they shouldn't be paying for me to mess up and learn on the job. So it's another reason why developing a product, developing, a niche helps, because now I know the process. I know how long it takes. I know everything that goes into it, and I can give you an accurate price. But if you were just like, hey, I need you to make me the world's largest clog, can you do that? I'd be like, yeah, I guess I could. I don't know. Is that $1,000? Is that $10,000? I don't know.
So the belief is that because I'm new at this thing, it doesn't have value.
In my mind. And my wife contradicts me on that constantly.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear you say that out loud.
Yes.
I'm hearing it, but I want to hear you.
No, I struggle with the issue that I always felt that if I can do something, it's kind of, it's not worthless, but it's not worth anything, because I can do it.
But it undermines how much work you put into getting to this point. Like that whole thing about Picasso, where he's drawing in a cafe or something, and some lady was like, and he's like, yeah, it's $20,000 or something, and she's like, you just drew that. He's like, yeah, it took that took you 5 minutes. He's like, no, it took me 20 years.
And it's the whole thing of you
what's next?
You don't pay I'm sorry. Oh, no,
oh my god. Mid-sentence.
And he's like, boring.
Next subject, please.
Danny Smash.
I know it's Toy's fault.
What's next for you?
As far as woodworking?
As far as your next project, what are you gonna go on to?
So what I've currently been working on is you're just dying on the inside.
I can't. We're gonna do so many more episodes.
Take me on the journey. I like it. What I'm currently working on is trying to, instead of waiting for people to come to me with their products or the things they want, I'm trying to get ahead of the curve and make the things that I want to make to display them. So I made a small stool, and then I made 2 larger stools, and I'm working my way into making chairs. So all of those things I'm making, I'm trying to make content on them to try, obviously, because you have it, why not? But I'm trying to make what makes me happy, make the things that I want to make to show other people, so they can say, I want that. And I can happily say, yes, I will do that. This is the thing that I want to do, not the random thing that everybody asked me to do.
Where can people find your products?
So I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. I have a website. I haven't been putting products.
I go like this.
Escamilla Woodworking.
Yeah,
for our listeners.
EscamillaWoodworking.com is the website. Escamilla Woodworking. You just Google it, and all my
ESCAMILLA.
I go like
it's
this.
It's like quesadilla, but with Escamilla.
I go like this, and Nick puts it right here.
Through the magic of editing.
It doesn't help the audio, people, but it's fun. What's the most you've ever charged for a piece?
Probably about $3,000 to $4,000 for a dining table, and then I think it was another $1,000 or $2,000 for 4 chairs that came with it.
And how long did it take you to do all that?
It took the better part of 2 years, but it was a long process. It wasn't that I was working 9 to 5
Sure.
Monday to Friday on this, but just talking them through the process. And these were good customers, quote unquote, in the sense that they were willing to work with me. Mm-hmm. They were willing to work through a design with me. They understood that this was a functional piece first, but also a work of art. They allowed me the freedom to do that. And it took a while to get there, but that's part of the process.
Yeah. What do you know now about making money with your craft that you wish you knew when you started?
Don't be afraid to charge what you need to charge, but take the time to understand what goes into it so that you can confidently tell somebody what you need to charge. Because you can throw a number out there and it may be right, it may be wrong. Mm-hmm. And you can be greedy and say, well, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. But do the research, take the time, practice, understand what you're doing, and take that knowledge, and you can kind of translate that into what you need to make on that project. Yeah.
Do you ever charge something and then you do the math on what that came out to hourly and you slap yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that happen more over time or less as time has gone on?
So it happened more often when I was doing a lot of new things because I didn't know the process. I didn't know, and people want an estimate. They want you to give them a number. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, this is going to take me 30 hours.
That's got to be hard because you don't know how many hours.
You have no idea. And it takes 50,
Right.
But the more you do it, the more you understand. There's a lot of overlap in any project. Mm-hmm. So the more you do it, the more you understand the process, and the more you can confidently say, okay, well, this is probably going to take me this many hours. This is how much it's going to charge. Feel free to make it very clear. This is an estimate. It could be more, it could be less, but this is kind of a ballpark.
Okay, cool. So what is the most valuable piece of information that you have learned in your life that you feel like would be of big use to other artists out there?
That I've learned in my life?
Yes. Really crystallized,
yeah.
Other things seem to reinforce this point. You keep relearning it because it just has so much impact.
Yeah. That's a big question. That's a very big question. Yeah. I mean, it's tough because I feel like everybody's on an individual journey with their own personality. But for me, it has just been, don't be afraid to start. There's a phrase that a lot of people coin that's paralysis by analysis. Mm-hmm. And it's when there's so much going on, there's so much ahead of you, whether it's a big project or starting a new endeavor, that you're terrified of just taking that first step.
Yeah.
And I still do it to this day. I know I have a project coming, and now I find a million chores to do. Now I learn the harmonica. I do all this other stuff too, because I know it's just looming over me. But the moment you take that first step, it gets easier because the second one is even easier, and the third step is even easier. So don't be afraid to start, regardless of how terrified you are, regardless of all the negative things that you're undoubtedly thinking.
Yeah.
Just take the step.
Yeah, I love that.
Wonderful, wonderful lesson to give to other people. Do you ever take and my last question?
I thought we were going to end it there, but okay.
Yeah, no, we are going to end it there. Okay.
Through the magic of editing, you'll end it wherever you want.
I was going to ask a question, but okay.
No, go ahead. What's your question?
My last question is: do you ever take a young person and teach them, you bring them along and you share what you know with them?
I love teaching people.
Yeah, you're a really good teacher.
I really enjoy, because I'm passionate about what I learn, and I enjoy sharing that passion with others. I haven't had the opportunity to mentor anybody specifically. I crave an apprenticeship. I die for people to mentor me, and I never get it anywhere I go. But as much as I can, I love sharing my knowledge. I love sharing my skills because I want everybody around me to be better than me, because it makes me work harder. It makes me be better, and it improves the community. You can only benefit by helping the people around you.
Thank you for your wise words. Anything else that you would like to say before we?
Well, thank you guys for having me on the show. I listened to your first couple episodes, and it's a subject that I feel like isn't talked about often enough, and it was one that I struggled with. So I appreciate having a community to kind of fall back on.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. You were a great guest. We appreciate you. We'll feature some of your videos when we do the final edit.
Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your time. Adios.
That's a wrap.
Woo.